Good evening and welcome to At Jim Bobcast. It's episode 17. I'm Jim.
I'm Bob.
And this week we've got Frank. Anyway, to do a little bit of housekeeping, Bob, just before we introduce our illustrious new guest, fire away.
Yeah. Look, on last week's podcast, I quoted a statement that was attributed to the former Premier League referee Mike Hulsey, that I later found out to have been incorrect and completely hoaxed upon the Twitter media. Back at the time, it was shown to be untrue. And I just apologise for saying or quoting an untrue tweet, and for any harm or damage it's caused to anyone, slap myself on the wrist, and I will honestly research before I speak in future.
Anyway, absolutely. Well done, sir, for clearing that up. Twitter has blown up again today for another Arsenal-related event, so we'll no doubt get onto that one later. But with all points due, the GOAT of the GOATs, Frankie, how are you, sir?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me on, guys. I know we've been trying to make this work for a while, so it's good to finally be on. Yeah,
absolutely. Looking forward to having you. So before we crack on a little, we will just ask a couple of questions of our guests, just because we're interested as well. So what drew you to being an Arsenal fan? When did it happen? How old were you?
Well, I mean, I imagine what similar to most people that listen to this and to you guys, I mean, I didn't really have much of a choice. My family aren't long-term Arsenal fans. You know, it's not something I'm not from North London. But so I'm from West London. But as I was growing up, my brother was an Arsenal fan. My dad's an Arsenal fan, and as a baby, you just get shoved an Arsenal shirt on you. And then from there, I guess when you're old enough to make a decision, you can go two ways. But if you like football enough, you don't really make a change. So
absolutely, it's a family affair, and often it's so bloody emotional, isn't it? That you just it's one of them things that you just live and die by the sort of with your family. So very similar to me. Bob comes from a West Ham household, so he just likes fighting.
Yeah, once you make that decision,
yeah, for sure. There's a lot of football clubs where I'm from, like Fulham down the road, QPR down the road, Brentford, but it's still good to support on the team. And I think once you do make that choice, and once you do get to a game, and once you do really have that affinity with the team, it's just impossible to even think another universe is possible.
Yeah. I mean, the totally first time I started supporting Arsenal because I wanted a football shirt, and I went into Valentine's Sports in Molesey near Fulham, and there was 3 shirts in there: a Chelsea shirt, a Millwall shirt, and an Arsenal shirt. And I was just told by my dad, who's a West Ham fan, well, you've got to have that one because I'm not letting you come home if you pick the other 2. So there I started with Arsenal, and I've never looked back again.
Nice. Yeah. Favourite player of all time, Frank?
Now, to be honest, I'd probably say, I mean, as a kid, it was probably Thierry Henry growing up, and, the Invincibles team, sort of the double winning team as well. But also Robert Pires has always been someone I've just loved, and fortunately got the chance to meet a few years ago, actually, at the Emirates, and it's brilliant. Like, I just think for me, like everyone talks about Henry, Bergkamp's genius is talked about a lot, but you got Robert Pires there, someone who was, if he played now, he'd be someone I think who would easily score 25, 30 goals the way wingers are positioned now. And you looked at the top scorers in the Premier League every year, you'd have Thierry Henry would get you 25, 30, but then Pires would chip in with 15 to 20 league goals. And I think a criminally underrated player long term.
Totes Bobby Pires, What a legend.
Yeah, I actually really agree with that. He was actually so much better at giving assists than people gave him credit for as well. He was a silky footballer, Bobby Pires.
Sure.
Right, okay, well, look, and that brings me on to our final question, which is going to lead us into reviewing the Villa game, which I'm sure people are always keen for us to hear about. If everyone is fit, you've got a completely fully fit squad, what is your best 11 at Arsenal?
That's a good question. I think you obviously start Leno. Now, I mean, are we assuming loan players are back, or are they still...
If you had everybody fit for Saturday, every single player,
fine.
Yeah?
Oh, look, let's go Leno in goal. I think, unfortunately, you have to start Bellerin. And then you start Tierney at left back. And you probably play, at the moment, Rob Holding and Gabriel at centre back. Then in midfield, I would play Thomas Partey. I guess you have to say Granit Xhaka, which is probably not the best idea, but you have to say that. If we could bring loan players back, I'd probably start Guendouzi. And then I'd play Emile Smith-Rowe. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna leave Smith-Rowe out for now. I'm gonna play Saka in a more attacking midfield position because I think he can play anywhere. I'm gonna play Pepe on the right. I'll play Martinelli on the left, and then I'll play Aubameyang up front.
Nice. Okay.
So Lacazette's played well this season, but I think long term, maybe not long term because of Aubameyang's age, but I think Martinelli and Pepe as the wingers with Aubameyang up front, that provides us our best chance to be a really, really good side.
So you've gone for Gabriel and Holding over Mari, which I'm a little shocked about.
Yeah,
that's
I am
probably
as well.
one of your decisions. I'm probably more shocked about that than you bringing back Guendouzi, if I'm completely honest.
I like Guendouzi. The thing is, I like Guendouzi. I think he.
I think the bloke's got so much promise. If he polishes attitude, I probably, you've got Saliba that could play at the back. His ball skills apparently are fantastic.
Well, look, has he? I guess the thing with Saliba is it's clear he needs a bit more time. Like centre backs typically won't come straight in and. I can't think of another centre back of his age.
Well, I can actually only think of one, Frank, who did it at his age, and that was Tony Adams.
Yeah, football's a lot different now, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. But I can't think of another under 20-year-old who had the impact that Arsenal require on the league, other than Tony.
No,
you don't get players like that. I think the only player since Tony Adams that could be touted, and I don't even know how old he was John Terry. He come through and played a long time, started off as a youngster, but even he wasn't.
He went out on loan as well, didn't he?
Alone, yeah.
To start with.
David O'Leary before Adams, but yeah, you're talking few players.
And I'm actually the thing I'm most surprised about and probably most hurt by is you're picking Bellerin. I think he's had a dreadful season.
Look, I think he's, especially in the last few weeks, he's been bad. But I do think he offers something to this team. Like when he's playing well, I think back to the FA Cup final, I thought he had a really, really good game, involved in the winner that day as well. And I do think he gets in good positions. He probably just lets it. If he was just a bit, it sounds bad because he's a professional footballer, but if he was just a bit better of a footballer, I know everyone goes on about his pace all the time, but for me, if his actual technique was better, it'd be a really quality fullback. I think earlier in his career, his pace probably allowed him to get away with not being the best footballer.
Well, I think actually that exactly what you've just said is exactly what Bob and I have said on a few occasions, haven't we, Bob, on the pod, which has been it's never about his athleticism. He's one of the finest athletes in the football club, but technically he just seems to be below the standard required to play in this division. And he's had more than enough time now, I think, to cut his teeth, to get to the required level. He just doesn't seem to operate on the football. He just looks stiff on the ball, if I'm being honest. And
who are you playing over him?
I think Cedric's a really, really, really good good fullback. He doesn't have the yard of pace, but I think he's significantly better on the ball with the final third, and that's so important for a fullback in modern football now.
I think he's positionally more aware. I like how Cedric's been playing when he's played at right back, but then in the same thing, you are right. Bellerin has had some phenomenal games for Arsenal. And interestingly enough, Bellerin's good games have outshone Cedric's good games. But as I said last week, his standard setting at the moment, Bellerin, is poor. We'll talk about that. I thought he was poor at the weekend. I thought he was running around like a little girl. And that's no disrespect to girls playing football. They're actually better than him, some of the Arsenal ladies at the moment. I honestly thought he was running around almost Willian-esque. But, is Cedric much better than him? I think on current form. I don't know. Cedric's been playing left back for a few weeks.
Yeah, Cedric couldn't even get the Southampton team, so I think that tells you a lot about the quality of him. I think it's a position we definitely need to look at. I personally would have kept Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and if he committed himself to playing that position, which it doesn't look like he wants to do, but if he wanted to, he could have really applied himself and been a long-term starter. It's a real shame for me because you look at someone like, and he's not had a good season, but you look at someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold. I'm not saying Ainsley Maitland-Niles is as good as Trent, but Trent's a central midfielder by trade naturally, but applied himself to play fullback and has become one of the best fullbacks in the world. It's a shame that Maitland-Niles seems to just want to play in central midfield.
And I actually think, Frank, and I actually agree with you that it's a very good chance that the top echelon, it would be the downfall of his professional career if he doesn't sit down and think about it, because he is a much better fullback, wing back than he is central midfielder at the moment. I mean, he couldn't get in the Ipswich side as a midfielder, when he went out on loan there. So
I also think with Maitland-Niles is he's got to realise if he wants to play international football, it's one of the reasons why he's left. If you look at the England midfield scenario, good luck getting into that. You're not going to get in it playing for West Brom, are you? You've got to pick a position and try and do it. Is he got a chance to challenge and push and make himself the understudy to Trent Alexander-Arnold? Yes, he definitely has. I talked about Saka, when he moved to the right wing and how well he's played. About he's moved from the left wing back role to that role will probably hamper his England desires because of the abundance of quality England have got in that area. Does he beat Sterling to the position? Does he beat Foden? Does he beat all these other Grealish and players like that into the team? He probably doesn't, Saka, at the moment. So moving and becoming a successful, brilliant right winger or attacker midfielder could, in the short term, certainly hamper his international aspirations.
Agreed. And, he's probably unlucky in the fact that the other position he can play in right back is probably England's strongest position outside of that. You've got Trent, you've got Wan-Bissaka, Tariq Lamptey, you've got Kieran Trippier still playing well. There's 4, 5, 6. Right. I mean, Kyle Walker-Peters is having a good season. I
was going to say that as well.
Well, it's not popular, but is he someone if there's no buyback clause, I would swallow your pride and go and buy a Spurs player and go and take Kyle Walker-Peters from Southampton in the summer potentially.
Yeah, that's a very interesting chat. We'll do a little bit of what a Frankie transfer window looks like at the end of the show, actually, which I'm quite looking forward to.
Probably bad.
Well, the rest of your team I find very interesting. I like the blend of experience and youth. I think I'm a Pepe in. I'm assuming if you've got everyone fit and you've picked him, you see something in him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's come into his own. I actually think he's played well on the left, which is I didn't think that was what he had in his locker, but. Look, he's been probably outside of Saka our best player in the last few games. He's actually got a bit of drive about him, and for me as a fan, especially in the last few months, pre-Christmas maybe, we've been one of the worst teams to watch, and it's been the worst Arsenal side to watch in my lifetime. And Pepe's someone who actually goes for it, and he can make a difference. He can produce something special. You get a lot of bad with that, but getting players that can actually win you a game on the pitch is really important. So I think Arsenal would be, stupid not to try and at least claw back some of that value by playing him and not sitting him on the bench.
You know what's really interesting about the point you make? A really good mate of mine, Wes, is a Liverpool fan. And the point you've just made, he makes it about Salah more often than not. When I ever stop and talk to him, I was like, fucking hell, Salah is in some form. And he says, mate, he's horrible to watch, though, if you're a Liverpool fan, 90 minutes, week in, week out, because he loses the ball as often as he does marvellous things. I think it's just about tipping the balance where there's as many marvellous things across the course of a season as there are kind of poor games. And I don't think Pepe's got millions of miles to go. It's inches here and there at the moment, when because I was saying to Bob, what's interesting about his almost 30 goal contributions for Arsenal in his first 2 seasons is all of them are pretty much self-made. The only goal he's had on a plate for him really was the couple of penalties and then the Xhaka ball at Southampton. Well, he still had a lot to do. But it's the first time we've given Pepe the ball in a kind of Lille-styled situation that we bought him from, where he's got the ball in the pocket through the line and he's got a clear attempt on goal. Other than that, he scored quite a lot of wonder goals, really, where he's beating 2, 3, 4 men or scoring from outside the box.
Well, he scored a really good goal against Sheffield United, which that was at least what I thought we were going to be doing a lot for him. And I imagine we're going to talk about it at some point, but you thought someone, and we'll get onto it later, but you thought someone like Ozil would really benefit from someone like Pepe and vice versa.
The dynamic with Ozil, Pepe, Aubameyang, Saka, and with Partey in behind them is something we'll never get to see. And I think it's a shame because Partey would probably be one of the players that Ozil cried out for the most, as well as the players like your Saka and your Pepe as well. I just think...
Well, he's only actually played 13 times with Aubameyang since we signed a proper number 9 for him. But we have got a little bit in the show towards the end about asking you about Ozil in or out, Frank. So I reckon we bring this conversation up then. Let's do what we don't want to do and review this Villa game. Bob.
Well, it was our 10th loss of the season. We lost our 10th game in February. Ridiculous. It was probably one of the worst games I've seen Arsenal play, certainly this year. It was definitely the worst game I've seen Arsenal play this year. It was very disappointing. We never looked in it, you know. It was a poor performance from back to front. You know, I'll exclude Matt Ryan making his debut after probably next to no training during the week. The rest of it just didn't work out for us, you know. We conceded within, 2 minutes? That goal was as soft as I say, as soft as morning eggs. You know, your eggs were probably harder than that when you had your breakfast, not 25 minutes before. Yeah, James. That goal went in and I thought, it's just like watching Southampton. It was a deja vu moment. And yeah, I mean, you said it rightly, James, didn't you? I mean, you saw the goal and you think they're both to blame. However, perhaps we shoulder too much of the blame at Cedric's door.
I thought Cedric was probably 2 foot short of his pass to Gabriel. I mean, it wasn't like a complete hospital pass. It was seeing as we talked about Adams earlier, the sort of pass where Adams will go and think, fuck, and go and clatter the man and the ball and just clean up a mess a little bit and then give his left back a bit of a bollocking and say, come on, get your head in the game. But Gabriel had every opportunity to go and certainly had every opportunity to prevent the guy then getting hold of the ball, screening him, going round him and getting a ball into the box. And then Holding and Bellerin, again, for me, not touch tight. And I think Holding's had 3 poor games in a row now where he's been caught out positionally quite a lot. And he's not a pacey centre-back, so his positioning has to be absolutely on the money. And his positioning's that bad that obviously the guy's got a shot off, which is weak. And it's hit Holding, blocking Ryan's view and just kind of scribbles into the goal. It's a Sunday league goal.
I mean, it was. I thought it was, other than it being an own goal, it was so similar to that Southampton goal. You know, all the time, whenever I see Arsenal play at 12:30 and 12:30 on BT, funnily enough, I always, and there's nothing against BT Sport, it just so happens it used to be this way. Whenever I see us play at that 12:30 kickoff, I always just think we're going to lose. It's almost like we don't like waking up in the morning. We never start well on these 12:30 kickoffs. Never, ever.
What do you make of that goal, Frank?
I think it was, you play a side like Aston Villa, who I think we've surprised a few. I mean, they surprised me and they surprised a lot of us. They should have probably gone down last season if it wasn't for that joke of a goal line decision. And they come out this season, they're a really good side. So I don't want to, I text Jim about this, but for me, you look at how the season played, say we're 19, 20 games in, or maybe a few more, and you look at the Arsenal side, you look at the Villa side, I think this game played out exactly how it should have, really. Like, it was very tight. I don't think either side was brilliant. Villa got away with a lot of strong tackles on our players, and our players didn't respond to that. You need to respond when you're given those tests. And then Ollie Watkins gets that goal really early. I mean, I actually hadn't even turned on the TV by that point. I was just coming back from a morning walk, and I get in and we're 1-0 down, and then I see the goal back, and it's dreadful. Arsenal didn't want to sign Ollie Watkins, or from more reports, I heard they do like the player, and it's come back to bite them twice now. At first at the Emirates, now at Villa Park, and for me, like, you look at the difference in someone like Lacazette when it comes to mobility, and although Lacazette's had a good season, like, Ollie Watkins just looks like he'd start for Arsenal. And, you look around the pitch, Tyrone Mings looks like he'd start for Arsenal. Jack Grealish would be Arsenal's best player. Emi Martinez on the day would have started for Arsenal. They've just, you look at Arsenal and Aston Villa, and I'm sorry this is the situation, but I think they're as good as Arsenal. The result didn't shock me.
Interesting enough, though, looking at the stats, Arsenal had 66% of the possession. Villa obviously 34. Villa 12 shots on goal. Arsenal 14. This is an alarming stat. Villa 8 shots on target to Arsenal's 3. Mm-hmm. Huge. Arsenal 7 corners to Villa's 3. Villa 1 offside to our 0 offsides. That's interesting. We didn't have an offside. In previous games, we've had several offsides. We've struggled to contain that. But yeah, on the whole, Villa had 3 yellow cards. We'll come on to the fact that they've only had 3 in a second. And that's it. They beat us 1-0 in a very tight game.
I think it just says where these two sides are at. I'd love Arsenal to be better, but I think anyone from 3rd down to 15th really can beat anyone at the moment. I don't think there's a single result that shocks me anymore. You see if Brighton go and beat Spurs, which they did the other day, that doesn't surprise me. But then
beat Liverpool.
Well, exactly. I think Arsenal are just an average team at the moment, and Villa got that early goal, and it's really tough to come back from that. Now, is that good enough for Arsenal Football Club? Obviously not, and it's going to take a while to repair that. But yeah, I wasn't shocked at all, and it's probably more alarming that we weren't shocked. But yeah, the way these two teams are at the moment, Villa are set up in they know what their manager wants. They pressed us incredibly high, much higher than I thought. They were incredibly aggressive, and I like to think of myself as someone who doesn't really look at football like this, but it did seem like they wanted it more. I think saying a team wants it more is an incredibly lazy way to analyse football, but they did. They were so aggressive from that first whistle. It paid off with the goal, and it paid off after that. The goal gave them a boost, and they were just on Arsenal's coattails every second in that first half.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Frankie. They were doubling up on Pepe, literally haranguing Saka on both of the wings, which was really intense of them.
Mm-hmm. I tweeted that at the time. Saka got absolutely targeted, and it felt like it came from the manager really, because each player would take a different turn at fouling him.
There's 2 things that you've mentioned there that I kind of want to come back to, because we'll talk about a little bit about Arteta. One is about how aggressive Aston Villa were, and secondly about the fact that Arsenal are an average team. But there are 2 points I just want to note when we finish the review of this game off, because fundamentally on the first point, Arsenal should have known that from the way Villa bashed us at the Emirates, to be honest. They shouldn't have expected anything any different, and if they did, it's naive to think that they were going to come and play us in a different way, because they smashed us so bad. Why would they not try and replicate that performance? And we are an average team at the moment with below average results, but you'd argue that we've got above average players. So the math doesn't work for me.
Depends where you look though, right? There's a lot of average players in this squad, but I'm sure we'll get onto it.
Well, exactly. Look, let's just finish this game off. We were 1-0 down, and like you said, Bob, chasing our coattails, and it allowed for Villa to structure themselves in the game to try and get us on the counter and not concede. But it wasn't without some contention, which was the 2 biggies that everyone's got on the end of their tongue is the incident with Saka when he gets in behind goal and he's pulled down, and then the Lacazette one. For one, I just give you my opinion, I actually don't think that the one on Saka is a red card. I think that's just a bit of an agenda thing from Arsenal fans at the moment, because we are getting on the wrong end of some bad decisions. But he is so far out and has got so much ground to cover. Yeah, and then the Lacazette one, I think Stonewall.
Dermot Gallagher, interestingly, suggested that it could be possible that the whole Saka incident could have been a foul by Saka on the opposition player, which is interesting. Yeah, I think looking at that, he has a lot to do. I agree with you, James. It was a tight decision, but again, I want consistency, and there's been moments where Arsenal have had players in a similar situation, other teams have had players in a similar situation, and that would have been a red card. If that was Louise on Ollie Watkins, I'm guaranteeing you it's a red.
Yeah, I said that at the time. It's hard to see if Louise made that tackle that he wouldn't be sent off. I'd be very surprised.
And that's wrong, isn't it? That's essentially wrong.
And that also alludes to the fact then that the both of you think that the match day officials have an agenda against Arsenal.
I wouldn't stretch to that. I don't think it. For me, for the last couple of weeks, I feel like Arsenal fans are turning into a bit it's quite tin hat brigade at the moment. Like, I don't think there's an agenda against Arsenal Football Club, but I do think that referees, just naturally from being human beings, referee matches differently. Like, I imagine under Fergie, when referees referee Manchester United games, they did feel somewhat intimidated. Arsene Wenger's obviously team. There's a narrative that's been pushed that you can go and kick Arsenal, and that led, in my opinion, to people like Eduardo breaking their leg, etc. Now, at the moment, I just think that officials are so bad, they just keep getting our decisions wrong, but they're getting loads wrong. I don't think it is a team thing. Like, I imagine this will turn in the next couple of weeks. We're going to get a really bad decision in our favour, and I think fans will forget about it.
Well, interestingly enough, if you look at the Villa last game, I mean, we went against the VAR officials for the Lacazette goal against Leicester. Yet Villa the following week have an almost identical scenario where we got the goal disallowed in our favour. I mean, that said, that probably affects our season a lot more in the long run of things. Those goals, I'd prefer to see both goals given, if I'm honest. But no, yeah, agendas or not. The Lacazette thing, though, you know, Lacazette tweeted it, Pepe liked it, Martinez commented back. You know, when they went to the BT studio, Ferdinand doesn't like Arsenal, Crouch doesn't like Arsenal, are both sitting there going, that's a penalty. There's no way in a month of Sundays that Lacazette's shirt isn't pulled and that's a penalty. I'm sorry. If Lacazette was pulling the keeper's shirt in that way and headed the ball in the goal's disallowed.
I think without VAR, you think that you could see why they'd have missed it. Real time, I didn't think it was a penalty. It looked like one of those where the striker kind of just gets involved. But yeah, I mean, it didn't come at a good time for the referees. I don't know why they don't just admit they're wrong on that one. Like, that is a penalty.
I mean, the thing is though, right, I hear what you're saying, Frank. So the obvious thing then should be that Lacazette is trying to gain an advantage on the officials in an inhumane way, so he should be booked for diving. There should be no middle ground. Because where the ball actually goes into in the goal is actually, it is a Lacazette versus Martinez. If you look at the Saka corner kick actually goes what would be about 2 yards to the left of what would be head height for Lacazette, and he's on the floor. But you know what they're saying about the tussling? You can't, and Martinez is like, oh, you pushed me first, which is fucking nonsense. Lacazette's hand is down by his side. If you are able to do what they can do in cricket and things like this, and Bob and I reflect to cricket a lot, because I think the DRS system in cricket is, well, I think it's unfloorable almost, to be honest. I think it's that perfect. They would just still shot it. They'll get a still shot and they'll rock and roll it, you know, and they'll just literally just sit there, rock and roll it. This guy's got all of this player's shirt. There's enough energy passed through the pool to take him to ground, which is obviously is an offence in play. It's a free kick, which obviously means award a penalty kick.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think the key thing there, and you alluded to it, was like you hear that, you know, can you just rock and roll that force is enough. Like, you hear the communication between the fourth umpire and the umpire on the field, and I guess that's where football probably doesn't help itself. I mean, I know I've seen some clips that have been going viral of the MLS where I think they've introduced something similar. Like, I don't think it's going to solve it. It wouldn't solve it overnight, right? But I think it would just start to eat away at that, because like at the moment, and I hate to be dramatic, but it's really ruining football. Like, and I try everything I say, I try not to be too dramatic, but like genuinely, my level of interest in football has gone massively down since VAR has come into play. Like, this whole disallowing goals from a toenail, and you know, you just don't know. Like, football is just not enjoyable anymore. I don't know. It's not as enjoyable. Like, I don't know if you guys agree with that.
I can see your point totally. And, you know, we finished watching that Arsenal game and I turn over and put the Italy versus France game in the Six Nations. Almost 5 minutes after watching it, there's an Italian try. Goes to the TMO, and the TMO and the ref have a chat on the pitch, look at a screen, look at the situation, talk about it in open air. The try was a fantastic try, by the way, and they disallow it because of the forward pass. They rock and roll it. They get every angle they need. They display that to the people watching it. The people in the ground can hear it because you can actually buy special TMO headphones when you go to rugby. and everyone knows the decision and welcomes the decision. And the right decision's made, even if it's not what ones want. Everyone wanted that try to stand because it was a beautiful thing. But the right decision's made because it shouldn't stand. The officials need to make the right decisions. A comment made was that VAR isn't there to get the right decision, it's to overturn bad decisions. If VAR's not there to get the right decision, the correct decision, then I think it's in the wrong place. It has to be for the good decision. And I agree with you. Football, week in, week out, you saw Sukek for West Ham, you've seen Southampton get bum deals, loads of teams are having deals, decisions gone against them. It's ruining football. A friend of mine on Facebook literally went off on one about VAR. He's a Spurs fan, and he went off on one about VAR and football and everything on Wednesday night. So that Spurs hadn't even played, and he's saying football's being ruined and the beautiful game's turned ugly. And he's right, and so are you, Frankie. It's really making football unenjoyable because by correcting or by allowing for something to correct human error and not correcting human error with something that can, it's ruining football. You ask, if you look at Aston Villa, they've taken 6 points of us this season. They shouldn't be in the league. We should have played Bournemouth twice.
For sure. Yeah, and I guess like for me it's not even just about the Arsenal games. Like I just find myself like being less interested in 90% of the Premier League games. And you know what? I'm the first to admit I wanted VAR. And I'm sure, 90% of football fans were really in favour of it. And I think, and this will never happen because the powers that be are too stubborn. I think we've all just got to go, we got this wrong. Like, let's go back down where it was. Like, and unfortunately, that's not going to happen. It's never the case in anything like this. But I honestly I'd rip it up and start again.
I mean, let's be honest.
I'd take it out of the game.
If you look at how VAR works in international football, a lot better. If you look at how VAR works in the European competitions, it works well. You see how it works in other countries, although recently this weekend in Turkey, it's not been great. But it's working in other places. It's in our league specifically where the decisions are not being implemented correctly because it's our professional body that's implementing it. And I find it quite strange that, you've got a bloke sitting in a room in Stockley Park that's officiating on the game, and it's the same place that's officiating on every single game. That might be because of technology, it might be a number of things. But that means it's almost like VAR is Stockley Park. And if VAR gets a decision wrong at 12:30 on Saturday afternoon, Stockley Park is also doing the game at 3:00 on Saturday afternoon. So it wants to make sure it's consistent with what's happened at 12:30 or not make a mistake like it did at 12:30. Whereas what you get in other games where you have video officiating, and you get this in European football, is the VAR ref is in the ground. He's specific to that game. He doesn't know what's occurring in other games. He does his game, he walks away. That's how it has to be. It has to be an extension of the on-field referee. So in your program notes, you get them all there. They turn up. They're dressed in refs kits if you want them to be. They should be. They are as umpires in cricket. And it's specific to the game. They're blinkered to the game. They're not sitting in the same seat that the next bloke walks in and sits in, like in Stockley Park. That's the wrong thing. You telling me that VAR's available in the Premier League, there's not a ground with that. The amount of data analysts football clubs have, that technology is ready, fleeting foot in the ground.
Oh, I think for me, just I think there's a bigger point of like, well, what do we want the sport to be? And like, you look at, for me, like the real reason I think football's become a lot more predictable and actually a lot less enjoyable for me is VAR and the way that works. But also like for me, like, we talked about the Salah thing earlier off air, but like this new notion because of VAR, I guess, that any contact is a penalty. Like it just means that I think you combine that with VAR and then also like teams and tactics evolving so much so that teams are just so cautious. Like you watch any big game really apart. I mean, Liverpool Man City was quite a good game this week, but like Man United Liverpool or any big game now, like or even any Premier League game, like you watch Man City play anyone, they'll put 10 men behind the ball. Like I think you combine those three factors of teams being so cautious tactically VAR, and then also contact equaling a penalty. I think you combine those three and you get a formula for football and the Premier League, which is something that I've always said is the best product in the world, in the sporting world. And I think it's really starting to lose its grip on that.
You've only got to look at how many spot kicks Fernandes has scored for United since he's been here, which is now, I believe, 2 years, because he came in that January window. And I think he scored 20 penalties.
That's unbelievable. Some players haven't scored 20 goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that Salah incident that we did talk about off air, that, if you look at it, is almost, for a point-by-point basis, a carbon copy of the Luiz versus Manchester City sending off at the end of last season. And you see that the City player Ruben Dias, I believe, gets booked, whereas Luiz gets sent off. That's inconsistency. But then I joked about it. I looked at it. Luiz was a penalty. Luiz was definitely a sending off. He's brought the bloke down. It's a pen. It's a sending off against City last year. You look at Dias. He's just flicked him on the arm. Salah's gone down like he's been shot. And one of the things that's really bugging me about VAR and about this rule that contact equals is that footballers in the attacking third know this. They go down easily, and that is wrong. That defenders and teams will get penalised because of the way that players go down. I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree.
VAR has to do something. It really does. We've sort of moved on to talk about VAR whilst talking about Villa here, Arsenal Villa. But let's be honest, Arsenal were poor. Arsenal were poor. They've had definitely one VAR decision against them that should have been a penalty. Contentious moment with Saka that could have been a sending off. But other than that, they didn't look like getting much.
What did you think of Arteta's management of the game, which will actually now bring us on to the Arteta point? I think the game's covered off, but Arteta's substitutions have been a point of contention for Bob and I throughout the season, where you make some allowances because he's raw in the job, but he's been in it long enough now where I don't think he can be given any special extra treatment. He's also had a couple of windows now as well. And then I thought his management of the game, which wasn't the first time this year, he manages football matches, in my opinion, because he is scared of losing heavily, more so than getting something out of the game.
I agree, James. Totally agree. The thing with his substitution, the way he managed that game on the weekend, there were some forced changes, there were some non-forced changes. When he took Cedric off and brought on Odegaard, he took off Lacazette to start with. Lacazette was having not his greatest game. Brought on Aubameyang, the only player on the bench to bring on for him. Okay, didn't really make much of an impact. We started to move a bit. I thought the boys in the middle of the park started to get a bit more liveliness. I
don't think Aubameyang touched the ball. I thought Aubameyang was dreadful when he came on.
We've then taken Cedric off and brought on Odegaard. Now, for whatever reason and whatever we want to talk about the actual substitution, what that actually led to was a positional change. Moving Saka to left wing back, then linking up on the left-hand side with Pepe, Xhaka filling in and supporting and being secure. I thought that gave us our best spell of the game. So marking his substitutions, the first one, I understand why he did it. The second one was a good sub, a sound sub. I might have taken off Bellerin instead of Cedric because I thought Bellerin was diabolical and Cedric could have done the role on the right-hand side and that could have benefited us more. But yeah, that gave us our best spell of the game. Nothing to do with Odegaard. Saka gave a little bit of what Tierney gives, which helped Pepe on that left-hand side. Then obviously Partey's got injured. Arteta can't help that. Arteta can't leave him on the pitch. He has to substitute him. And he brings on Willian. Now, whatever you feel about Willian's quality or anything like that, the mistake he made with bringing on Willian is he put him on the left-hand side. And that smashed all of that goodness, all of that great movement, all of that chance that left-hand side was bringing. And they did bring chances. Let's be honest, there was positivity from it and it stopped there and then. So the second that Willian substitution happened, and probably no disrespect to Willian there for that part, if he was brought in the right-hand side, he's almost out of harm's way and we can carry on to do something down the left. But being put on the left, it ruined it. And that's not his fault. That's tactically on Arteta. He was forced to a substitution. He executed probably the right player to bring on, really, but put him in the wrong place. game over then. You could have turned over and watched Football Focus.
But this is partly to do with the stubbornness of Arteta, about his persistence about continuing to pick Willian. He's been ruthless in other areas by deregistering Saliba and Ozil, who are two of Arsenal's highest ticket acquisitions in the last decade. But this guy who he's brought in on a free transfer, who's had way more minutes than I think any Arsenal fan thinks he should have because of the form he's been in for months now, he just continues to get game time. And, you know, I said to you, Bob, he's had 3 goal contributions all season. 2 of them came in the first game of the year. He's had a singular goal contribution since August 2020. You know, and it's baffling that this guy continues to get so much time.
Let's not be to find a point on it. I think his first goal contribution against Fulham, if my memory serves me well, was him missing a shot that fell to Lacazette that put the ball in on the rebound. If I'm
no, it was 5 yards out.
So his first goal contribution was him not doing it himself.
And arguably his second one is a touch of brilliance from Aubameyang, isn't it? I mean, he beats 2 players and scores from 25 yards, but look, it's still a goal contribution and they all count. I think Bellerin got the goal contribution for the Sheffield United goal Pepe scored, Frank mentioned earlier. And he got an assist. He got an assist for both goals in that game, whereas Pepe was the catalyst to give us the goals. But what do you think, Frank? I mean, where do you stand on this Arteta situation?
I mean, overall, I'm relatively happy with Arteta. I'm not. Look, I think if you appoint a rookie manager, you're going to get a few years of pain. You know, we're not Barcelona where you bring in Pep Guardiola in it, and you've got Lionel Messi. Like, this is going to take a long time, and he probably has to. He bought himself more time with that FA Cup win. Had he not won the FA Cup, would he still be Arsenal manager? Probably not. Which that can go either way. I think overall, though, I do like what he does. I think he makes mistakes, as does every manager. And could he have handled the Saliba situation better on reflection? Maybe. Should he have been so vocal about signing Willian? I'd say there are probably other forces at play there. I'm happy to give him the benefit of the doubt there. I think for me, the thing I'm glad about at least is that we got out of that terrible run of form. I really thought he was close to the sack. And then he put his faith in the young players, not because they're young players and he wanted to write the season off, but because they're our best players. Yeah, Emile Smith-Rowe and Saka have arguably been our 2 players of the season this season. So I'm. This is going to take time, and I'm not one of the people that blindly wants him to succeed. But I'm happy to give him time. I don't actually have wild expectations at the moment, which is probably a sad thing, but
it's an honest thing, isn't it?
It is honest.
I don't expect us to challenge for a title, and I think if we let go of Arteta now, could he go and be a really top manager somewhere else? Yes.
So that being said, and you plug in for a long drive down the highway for sustained growth in the future, how long are you happy to get comfortable with mediocrity for then? Bearing in mind 10th out of a league of 20 teams is the median.
Hang on. It's a tricky one, right? Because context matters, and how our performances are, where the team looks like it's going is really important. I think the club really thought that going into last summer they were going to be able to shift a lot of their players, and I thought they were going to have a really big overhaul. Maybe naively, and a year in a pandemic, no one wanted to spend any money, and I think they thought they really were going to get rid of a lot of these players for a decent amount of money, and we're going to be able to bring in maybe an Aouar, maybe a Buendia, maybe someone else, but I think the money wasn't there, and Arsenal felt that more than a lot of clubs. So going into this season, the clubs that had already spent a lot of money were probably going to do better. Your Man City look fantastic.
But that is because Man City's owner, who is a multi-billionaire in his own right, similar to Arsenal's, is happy to cut losses because he believes in a vision that's been sold to him by his management team. And he will invest in a 60 million Diaz, Cancelo. They bought other players. They didn't take 18 million for Eric Garcia, albeit he's going into the final year of his contract because he may need to provide backup to other things. And fundamentally, he's invested in his side. And at the same token, blooding players through the youth system like Phil Foden. And look at the re-emergence of John Stones as well. So
I like John Stones.
Yeah, I do a lot as well. And I think that being said, Arsenal were happy to deregister their highest ticket player, which means that you have to be of the utmost ruthless. So you should have loaned out. Saliba should have gone out on loan in the first window, not sat around for 6 months devaluing his ticket value when he's only a 19-year-old kid. Mustafi should have been gone out on loan. Socrates should have gone out on loan. I feel like there was enough around for Torreira to go, but Arsenal actually dragged their heels with this party situation, didn't manage it properly. If you believe what you read, Arteta wanted a war, Edu wanted party. Really it should have been a case of, okay, get both, because we're so short in midfield, and they didn't. And I think that there's never any urgency in transfer windows. And I actually think the one that we've just had is really poor. And I was going to ask you both what you thought of Ødegaard's cameo performance in what is now his third game since he's been here at the club. I know he's only played in one
I think
other.
Frankie made a great point. And his point was that with the Willian deal, that there was potentially other forces at play with that. But like a lot of these deals and a lot of our transfer dealings during this season have been Arteta's phone call made the difference. Arteta's phone call made the difference. Arteta, this is a footballing reason. Arteta, this is my vision. He's taken a lot of the decision making, I suppose, as manager, newly promoted manager, that's the case. But I can see your point, and I probably agree with you, Frankie, that there are other forces at play. Do you really think that Arteta's been on the phone all day to Willian to try and convince him to come and play for Arsenal, when realistically there was an opportunity for Coutinho or another opportunity for Aouar, who he wanted both of? Do you really think he spent all that time? Do you really think he spent all that time on the phone to Ødegaard to try and get him to come, when actually he wanted Bundia, or actually he wanted another nibble in France or something else? I just don't get it. I don't get who is in charge at Arsenal, because they're going around in circles. Edu's working hard. Is he? Very easy to cancel contracts.
Yeah, he should be working hard. Like he's got the job of a lifetime. I think Arsenal just got it wrong, like in their profiling of who they sign. Like for me, you look at a team that do it really well, and because look, we're not Man City. I know it's like Arsenal are not Man City. We can't afford to go and get loads of players for 50 million and get loads of them wrong. Like if we're going to,
that's because Arsenal choose not to be, though, Frankie. That's not because their owners don't have the firepower to be that person. That's because the club have made the
owners
choice.
Aren't. I think we know what these owners are, and the thing is they have put money in. I just don't think they're putting money in the right way. Like for me, you look at someone like Leicester. Leicester don't have the budget Arsenal have, right? But the way they've been able to raise funds and compete at the top level is because they've signed the right profile of players. They sign good players from the lower leagues, people like James Maddison early.
Vardy.
They sign people like Harry Maguire early. And then they sell them on for 80 million. James Maddison's going to go and get them 60 million. Then they reinvest that with young players that are good on their way up and have resale value. And I think Leicester just proved that you don't actually need the huge budgets of Man City to compete. You can go and buy Harry Maguire for 10 million, sell him for 80 million.
They replaced Maguire with a player that I was barking at Bob for us to buy in Kaglar Sunku. Who unfortunately, obviously, he's got season long. I think he's out for a whole season now. But the time that he did play last year, and they paid 16 million for him, and everybody overlooked it at the time because it was another one of these situations where everyone thought we were going to sign up a Makanu. But I was like, no, buy this lad Soyuncu. He is a top player. He's got really good exposure to first team football. I think he played in the Champions League already. 16 million quid is a snip.
Yeah, we just don't seem to buy that player. Like for me, and I think we're going to. I might be wrong on this, but we're going to come back in a few years. Someone, and it's going to be Arsenal, Spurs, Liverpool, Man City. Someone is going to go and pay 55, 60, 70 million for Abir Eze from Crystal Palace, and everyone could have got him for 20 million this summer. And you look at someone like Ollie Watkins, who Villa got for 20 million. Someone might have paid 60 million for him. Like, there are people in the Championship to go and get, and we can turn our nose up at them if we like, because when you get linked with them, everyone seems to think, oh, they're Championship players. But James Maddison was a Championship player. Jack Grealish was a Championship player. There's top players out there. That's why the Buendia link did not scare me at all. He's a top player, and
he's played in the Premier League. It's
exactly.
Not, and I think this. I think actually now, you took the players that you mentioned, Frankie, is the reason why people are sitting scratching their head, because they're demanding these big tickets now for players in the Championship, and people are getting a bit bewildered by it. In the second tier of English football, all of a sudden it's a 30, 35, 40 million pound market, and you're like, I just hadn't factored that in. But you look at this lad that everyone's talking about next, the striker at Brentford, Ivan Toney, I think he's called. Is that your way, isn't it? West London. I mean, people are saying that this lad's going to be the next 30, 40 million quid. I think he's the next Ollie Watkins, potentially.
I just think these clubs, like Leicester, what they're doing is they're doing it right. It doesn't matter if you're Man City. Man City can burn money. They can do exactly what they want to do. But Leicester are doing it right. They are looking, they are scouting. George Graham, when he came to Arsenal, first thing he did was he wanted to get hold of local newspaper reporters. He went out and signed Lee Dixon, a snip, Steve Bold, a snip. Both went on to be Arsenal legends. He literally researched because he knew where the good stuff was coming from. And that's the difference. If you manage your club properly, you can make profit, regenerate the profit, invest, purchase, and do all of that. Or and then the same goes, if you manage your club properly when you've got lots of money, then you can do all that. But if you don't have any money, you have to do, but Arsenal have both. They have the money, they don't want to spend it. They're not doing it correctly. Kroenke could spend money. But when they do spend money, they're not managing it right. To drop however many thousands a week we're paying for Willian is not the right player. But then you don't go out and get, you're right with Buendia. 40 million, they were probably saying. We could have probably done a much better deal because we've got assets that could have gone the other way. Nketiah, Balogun, Willock on loan, Reece Nelson on loan, Saliba on loan. The same with the guy who's gone to Benrahma, that's gone to West Ham, that's just starting to come to fruition now. We could have gone and got him. David Raya could have gone and got him. There's lots of player out there that we could have gone and got. Frightened about going out and buying them because they're Championship. Frightened about dropping top dollar. But when you're thinking we're loaning Ainsley Maitland-Niles to West Brom under Sam Allardyce, that's a crock of shit. It's not going to benefit him at all. It's not benefiting Arsenal Football Club at all, that deal. It is of zero benefit to Arsenal Football Club.
We're not outsmarting the market at all.
Yeah, exactly. And I take your points, about we now have to, under Wenger, the last decade of Wenger's reign, we knew we had to try and do adverse things in the transfer market when other teams were amassing humongous deals. But I can't help but think that Arsenal Football Club, have only had 2 player sales over £30 million in the entirety of their existence, in Oxlade-Chamberlain and Iwobi, who are probably 2 players that you'd never associate with sales like that. The deal that we done in the end for Sanchez for Mkhitaryan was valued at, we actually ended up selling Sanchez at 30.8 million, and we paid 30.8 million for Mkhitaryan. Mkhitaryan played a season for Arsenal because he played one half season, another half season. He played a half season for Wenger in Wenger's last season and actually had a really good return, with Aubameyang obviously in his first window as well. And then, we've lost him, and he's he's totally firing it up in Rome. But we've ended up giving Sanchez to United for free because we let Mkhitaryan go for free. He ended up going to Roma for a season on loan. Then he just joined them when his contract expired. I mean, it's fucking farcical that stuff happens. We sold Szczesny to Juventus for like 12 million quid when goalkeeper sales had gone for 30, 35. Well, Juventus have absolutely had it off of us. Ramsey and Szczesny for £12 million.
Arguably two of Arsenal's best players. But for me, like the real problem, and I completely see what you're saying in terms of Kroenke could invest. But for me, why would he? Because every time he invests, he gets nothing back. Like, I've got a way bigger problem with the way we handle player sales as opposed to player purchases. Because like we're also not buying the right players, right? But at the same time, we're just not managing contracts effectively. We're not selling right. Like Liverpool, the reason they were able to go and buy Van Dijk is because they got 135 million for Philippe Coutinho.
They got 25 million for Ryan Brewster.
You go, and you just knew that we were not. If we sold Eddie Nketiah, which I'm against, but if we were to sell him, I don't think we'd get more than £10 million. If he played for Liverpool, they would get at least £30 million. I just think that's the reality, and the club need to conduct a good long review on that, because we're putting ourselves at a massive disadvantage. I don't actually think an owner putting loads of money into a team is the way it should be. You should be building your squad through squad building and selling players, buying players, and we can't seem to do that. We're useless.
Absolutely. The player recruitment, the management, the players, the whole HR system, if you will, is just wrong. You know, we are letting players go out of the door for zero this month and clapping that we've cancelled Mustafi's contract, or we haven't cancelled it, but he's gone out for free, basically. Ozil's contract's been cancelled. Socrates cancelled. Mkhitaryan, the other year, cancelled. Ramsey go on a free. All these players just leaving the football club, holding us to ransom. You know, then Sanelli comes out and says, "Oh, that's it. Once we get to the last year, if they don't sign, we're going to piss them off." I saw an article earlier on today. Edu's decision and hard work, what he does about the Lacazette contract. You know, Lacazette's moving into the last year of his contract now. So any value that he potentially holds is literally going. And now he's holding us in the palm of his hand for his contract or not. We just lose out with players all the time.
Yeah, and the biggest issue is that we went through a period, and Wenger's partly to blame for this because he was in charge at the time, but everybody came into this wage-tiered contract because at the time there was a clause in Wenger's contract that no player could earn more than Wenger. And everybody kept falling into this kind of what they used to call tier 1, 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B. And everyone used to keep falling into this tier 2A and tier 2B. And it was basically somewhere in the region of 60 to 90,000 pounds per week. And you ended up having everyone in that window, you know, Koscielny, Cech, Louise, El Neni, I think at the very, very low end of that, Kolasinac, Socrates, all these players who are on, like, do you know what I mean? All of a sudden they're on £4 million a year, and they're just the market on the continent. They haven't got the wages. They haven't got the wage bills for those players. You know, they've normally got one or two really, really high earning players, and then everyone else is kind of, you know, we signed Partey from Atletico, and I think he was earning something like 90,000 euros at the time when we signed Partey, but he was about to get a new contract, which is going to see a double up, which is why we've had to pay him top dollar. But, you know, but there's plenty of top class players playing in Germany and Spain that Arsenal would lick their lips at to have in their teams that are earning less than 100,000 euros a year.
Yes.
Sorry, a week.
It's absolute child's play the way they do it, James. It bugs me to no end that every window and every, you know, how long have we gone as Arsenal fans where we've always been missing a player?
Oh, yeah, the famous if we had two more players line.
Yeah. Oh, if we replaced Vieira, don't do it. You know, if we replaced Henry, if we replaced Seaman, if we replaced Adams, if we replaced Sol Campbell, if we replaced Gilberto, you know, I'm reading out phenomenal players. If we replaced Bobby Pires, you know, and in many ways, we've replaced lots of those players.
But Frankie made a really good point about Man City, and we're not Man City. But, you know, they've replaced Company 4 times. One of them's going to get it right, you know. They replaced David Silva with what became his understudy and is now his surpasser in Kevin De Bruyne. You know, Jesus is going to go beyond Aguero. He's not quite there, but he's probably actually, bar Kane, the best 9 in the league in retrospective return. Well, and Vardy in return of goals. You know, they've replaced Sane with Sterling and Mahrez, and now they've got Ferran Torres. So they address the situation straight away.
They're ruthless. Look at Liverpool in this window. Liverpool, no centre-backs, need them. Okay, let's go and get them. Bang. Yeah, 2 centre-backs in a day. And those were literally out of the blue.
Yeah, I mean, all the guy from Preston, like, by all accounts, looks to be pretty good fit for what they wanted. They needed someone who could play at the back. For me, like, you look at, I guess I'm kind of bringing back an old point, but you look at Man City are able to try 4 times to sign a centre back. We would be in this position if we'd have actually sold players right. Like, you look at, say, Mustafi, Ramsey, Alexis, Ozil, etc. You got 100, 200 million there that you could have carried on investing, but instead we've let these players just drift into obscurity and we're left with no money. So then the owner has to keep investing. So
and you're right, Frankie, and I back you up. I said this on our last pod. I said there might be a point where the Cronkies actually, our poor management of transfers, our last 4 to 5 windows, is where the Cronkies turn around and say, do you know what? Fuck this. I've given you 300-400 million quid and there's no resaleability on it at all. Like,
our best player is Saka.
Yeah, and I don't exactly. I could do a property deal here in the States, right? If I put £300 million into something, I'm not losing my money. Like, at the very least, I get my money back, and I'd also expect some kind of profit or return on it, which would be either, player sales thereafter, or I get major honours and trophies, which obviously come with financial rewards and also big commercial boosters. So. It's I do agree with you in that regard. The poor management has actually probably watered down the Kroenke out brigade a bit, because Kroenke's all of a sudden got an excuse, which he hasn't had for a long time before that.
Agreed. And the thing is, I'm a huge NFL fan, and it really doesn't mirror his experience with the LA Rams. Like, the LA Rams have just built a new stadium for $2 billion. They're going all in. They even this offseason, you can't spend money in the NFL per se, but they've gone all in. Like, they're trading everything they can to win right now, and it just doesn't feel like has that aggressiveness at Arsenal. Maybe because in the LA Rams he sees someone, they've got a really, really good young coach, and he thinks, this guy doesn't let me down. He makes the playoffs every year. If Arsenal actually returned, profit on some of their players, I think he would probably put more money into the transfers.
Well, he did that very same window after we got to the Europa League final. They sat down after getting to the Europa League final, after missing out on the Champions League by a point, and they thought, we've only just missed out. Let's go and invest. And obviously what's happened after that is down to a number of reasons with Emery, et cetera, et cetera. But they looked to that, so they thought they had the chance. Then obviously what they've seen since is, this is not going our way, so we need to now retract.
They also gave Emery a best part of 130 million, his opening window, I believe, because I think a lot of the old Wenger in brigade were like, oh, now you give money. But, not forgetting that obviously if you do give the Mkhitaryan deal 30 million quid value, Wenger spent 100 million in the January before with Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan. So
he also redeemed selling Giroud and selling Sanchez probably for somewhere nearly the 50 million mark.
It was 50 million, yeah. It would have been 18 and 30 and a bit, yeah. So, the Giroud
which is really good. Because
the Giroud one was a good return of money, because obviously scored 120 odd goals for Arsenal, and we bought him for 10 million and sold him for 18. So,
but we sold him to arrive. I mean, I know they needed the domino effect to get Aubameyang through the door. I know that needed to happen. But when do you see your teams selling the key areas to key players to the key teams, unless they come in and drop money?
I mean, we have sold players to Chelsea, City, Liverpool and United. I mean, the only one we need to just get a royal flush is Spurs. But obviously Oxlade-Chamberlain has gone to Liverpool. A whole fucking barrage of players in the mid-2010s went to Man City. Sanchez went to United. Van Persie went to United. Yeah, and obviously like Giroud and Ashley Cole have gone to Chelsea. So, a lot of teams have benefited off of us, which probably plays into the point Frankie made earlier about we're a bit of an average club. We're a bit of a feeder club now.
We're not managed correctly at all. Yeah, we could talk for hours about this particular point, because it's true to our heart. It is,
and it is, and
I want Arsenal to be back at the top.
I'm inclined to agree with you, Frank, a bit on the fact that I think Arteta's got ability, but I think the team above the direct first team manager have all got to pull their socks up a little bit, and the club needs to be orchestrated in a way that actually gives him a fighting chance. I think at the moment, the management of players and giving Arteta a competent squad is integral to him taking us from kind of 7th to 10th to the top 6 again. And then we'll see what we're going to do. It's going to be a really, really, really interesting summer. There's a lot of players out of contract entering their first year. Also, the age of Lacazette and Aubameyang needs to be visited as well very soon.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I guess the counter to that would be like, we need these guys to have time. Everyone's dealing with a pandemic, I guess. But look, I don't really know how this is going to shake out. Like we're in a really sticky situation, I think, squad wise. Like there's still, even though we got rid of some really bad eggs, there's still a lot of average players in the squad, and it's going to take a long time to get rid of them.
Absolutely, and to strengthen, I totally agree. It's going to be from a long, hard winter, so to speak.
Yes, it is. Right, well, we've covered Arteta, we've covered Villa. We did a bit on VAR, but it does lead into, Bob, your favourite feature of the week, which is #FOTW,
yes.
Which is, for those that don't know, is fuck of the week. Bob's favourite word to describe people in a kind of cursing adjective is calling them a fuck.
So this week we've had quite a few contenders to fuck of the week. I started off with Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp turns around and says his players are exhausted, they're tired. The same set of players that 2 weeks prior, he's gone out and played against Aston Villa's children, and royally beat them. Mate, rest your team when you can, then they won't be tired. So you nearly got fuck of the week there, Jurgen, but you just missed out. Flying in, I couldn't believe this bloke got picked in the end. But Joe Linton posting having a haircut, absolute. What are you doing posting yourself having a picture? Although, I got burnt about this last week. Who knows? That bloke could live with him, But don't post it, mate. I've got shocking hair at the moment. I can't have it cut. Loads of people can't have their hair cut. So don't post it. We do have a stop press with the boy Saliba, but I need to research that a bit more before I start giving out awards.
Yes.
But before I give out this week's award, Frankie, you got any contenders for the old fuck of the week yourself?
Well, I mean, I think we might disagree on this, but I think Cedric should be up there.
Cedric, scathing. This is for absolute first-class fuckery.
Yeah. I'm just trying to throw something into the mix.
Wow, you've thrown a debate in. Okay, Cedric in. Okay, he's not winning it because this week's winner is for his defence of the indefensible. It's his astonishing fuckery was met with absolute disdain from Peter Crouch. I thought Rio Ferdinand, if he could get within 2 meters of him, was going to lynch him. But BT's very own Peter Walton is this week's fuck of the week. Mate, the way you have the way he's defended VAR decisions, and he's taken the same VAR decision in 2 games and defended them differently. The way he said that VAR's not there to get the right decision.
Whilst also agreeing with the other person and then giving a reason for why he disagreed. Like he opened the sentence, Crouch or Rio would talk and say, I'm not disagreeing with you, Peter, but but you are disagreeing because you're about to say it's not a penalty. So you are disagreeing because you're about to say it's not a red card. Or you are disagreeing because you're trying to justify that the Bednarek one isn't exactly the same as the Louise one, which I still watch them on like a dual screen, both incidents. And I don't know if you can, Frank, but they happened on the same day, game after game. And I literally cannot for the life of me determine the difference, how a referee can determine the difference between the Bednarek and the Louise one to say it deserves a different card.
No, yeah, I mean, no, it's... one of them's wearing an Arsenal shirt. I think they didn't help themselves there. I think if they'd have just reversed both decisions, I think they would have saved themselves a lot of issues. But then,
I think it was really difficult though. I think it's really difficult. It's very easy for them to reverse the Man United decision because Southampton got smashed 9-1.
Agreed.
You can't, if you reverse that Luiz decision, which was the reason that Arsenal lost, let's not lie about it. It's the reason Arsenal lost. You reverse that, you're saying that this whole game needs to stop and change. Dangerous game. But Peter Walton's brilliance, utter, James, whenever anyone opens up their sentence with, I'm not disagreeing with you, it's the same as anyone that opens up with their sentence saying, I don't mean offence. Your following sentence is going to do both disagree and mean offence if you use it. Peter Walton, welcome to the club. It's the third VAR or the third official on the bounce that has won this week's Fuck of the Week.
Yeah, and I also believe that Peter Walton, this will not be your last time that you hold this illustrious crown. So, yeah, I believe like Messi and Ronaldo, you could be a Don of the Fuck of the Week in weeks to come. Anyway, we move on beyond FOTW. Hashtag it, check it out at Jim Bobcast. Right, we have an Ask the Guest. We are going to play this week's game with Frankie as our very first guest, which we are incredibly over the moon to have him on board with us. So this week's game is Play Your Gooners Right, an abbreviation of Play Your Cards Right. I will be Brucey, Frankie will be Frankie, and you will obviously get the opportunity, Frank, to go higher or low. So what we will start with is David Seaman had 482 Arsenal appearances. So Dennis Bergkamp, did he have more or less appearances than David Seaman?
So Bergkamp would have joined in 97.
Higher or lower?
Let's go lower.
Oh, correct. Moves on to the next one.
Hey!
Ian
404 appearances for Dennis Bergkamp.
Correct.
Goalkeepers play longer, don't they?
Yeah, well, nice. Ian Wright's Arsenal goals versus Dennis's appearances for Arsenal. So again, it's Ian Wright's Arsenal goals, lower or higher than 404?
Ian Wright's goals are lower.
185 Arsenal goals, Ian Wright, in 288 appearances, 279 of which were starts.
Lovely. Okay, mixing the order up. Okay, so Ian Wright's Arsenal goals, 185. Did Santi Cazorla play more or less Arsenal games than Ian Wright scored goals for Arsenal?
Is that all appearances?
Yes, all appearances.
Let's say he was at the club for 5 years. Oh, that'll be tight, I think.
Did have that one bad injury, didn't he? But
I'm going to go lower.
Oh, he's right. He's on to the next question. Santi Cazorla having only 180 Arsenal appearances to Ian Wright's 185. Next one would be Ray Parlour Premier League appearances over Santi's 180.
God, he played for years for Arsenal. I think I'm going to go higher.
Yes, Ray Parlour having 333 Premier League appearances for Arsenal. So
that is Arsenal's all-time record appearances in the Premier League. So of any player that's ever played for Arsenal, he has more Premier League appearances than them all.
The Romford Pele, a great man. I actually was lucky enough to meet Ray at a charity game I hosted down at the Barnet Ground, and he's a lovely bloke. So then for
he's great value.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, and then for the complete crown to take the guests to 1-0 against Bob and I would be Wojciech Szczesny. The total Arsenal appearances higher or lower than Ray Parlour's 333 league appearances?
Well, I'm going to have to go lower.
Lower it is. It is a clean sweep for Frankie. Wojciech Szczesny had 181 Arsenal.
Congratulations, you've done very well. There was a few sticky ones, Cazorla versus Ian Wright was tight. And Ray Parlour's 333, I thought was quite high. You might have...
Well, you've got to think he was playing in the early 90s, right? So
he started playing in the football. I think he made his debut for Arsenal in the Football League, that infamous game on a Friday night. I think it was the ITV match where he gave away a penalty on his debut, actually.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the only reason I kind of went for him. But yeah,
fine Arsenal knowledge. Fine Arsenal knowledge. Frankie wins our first game, which is play your Gooners right. So he will take the illustrious crown of which is fuck all, Frankie. We won't be able to send you anything, but know that obviously you have taken one up on Bob and I, and when pubs open, we'll be sure to meet and buy you a beer. Right, let's finish off.
Or not, they might open with no alcohol.
Well, that is actually potential as well. So what we wanted to ask, there was two more things, and both of them kind of interconnecting. So how you actually marked that last transfer window out of 10. I know you've spoken a lot about it in Arsenal's transfer musings, but that exact last transfer window we've just been privy to, what did you grade out of 10 and why?
Look, I would probably give it a 5. I thought we were going to go and sign a left back. I think that's the thing I would have done. I'd have just got a backup left back, a Ryan Bertrand or someone like that, just to cover Tierney, because we miss so much. Like Cedric's had a couple of good games at left back, but we just miss having that natural left footer at left back. And like we look at a completely different team when Kieran Tierney doesn't play. And I'm not saying Ryan Bertrand would have solved all those problems, but I think a backup left back, I'd probably put it at a 7. I'm glad we got Odegaard in. I think we're yet to see what he can do, but like by all accounts, he's of incredible talent. He's been someone actually I thought we were going to sign a few years ago, and I'm glad he's here now. And I think if he does play well, I think we're going to look back on that transfer as a really good one. Emile Smith-Rowe for me has been brilliant, and I've loved every minute of it. I just thought against Villa we started to see the signs of him getting a bit tired, so I think Odegaard will slowly start to ease the workload. So I think it could still retrospectively look at being a good window. We've got a backup keeper in Ryan who's better than that clown we've got from Iceland. So yeah, I think it could be an all right one, but I think at the moment it's a 5.
I mean, in the summer, what do Arsenal need to do to actually, for the very first time in a long time, have an 8, 9, 10 out of 10 window?
I think they need to decide what they want to do long term in the striker position. Is Lacazette or Aubameyang, are they the man going to play down the middle? And the answer is probably no. So I think you've got to go and buy a centre forward, a long-term centre forward, maybe the guy from Celtic, Edouard, or the guy from Salzburg, Daka. So I think they're 9.
I really like Calvert-Lewin. I
agree.
There's a lot of Calvert-Lewin that I can see really benefiting Arsenal.
I think he might be a bit too expensive.
But do you try and do as you said earlier? Do you try and upset Aston Villa and go and try and take Watkins from them?
Look, the club want to swallow. My problem is, I think when you could have got him for 20 million last summer to go and pay 50, 60, I think the club would have to swallow a lot of pride. Now it's probably the right thing to do. I just don't think they'd do it. So yeah, I think you go and get a striker. You either work things out with Guendouzi, or I think you need a partner from there. I think. At this point, we know what Granit Xhaka is. Like, he's had a good few games, but we know he's not good enough. I know it's a lazy thing to track, but you've got every year we made the Champions League until Granit Xhaka signed. We signed him, and we've not made the Champions League since.
Yeah, and I also think if you should be able to, if you're smart and there is part of a market there, you should be able to achieve 50 million for Guendouzi, Xhaka, and Torreira combined, which would allow you to then go and get an Aouar or a Party kind of equivalent, or this lad. I do quite like this lad Bissouma at Brighton.
I completely agree with that.
I like him a lot.
Completely agree with that. He's really good.
Yeah. So this is all it though, isn't it? For us to have a good window, we need smart sales to help trigger smart acquisitions. You can't have one without the other at Arsenal, because we're not a burn club.
But that's what Arsenal have been doing. Arsenal have been trying to sell players when they need to sell them, rather than going out and saying, do you know what? If we move on Xhaka, or we last season moving on Lacazette, or we move on Maitland-Niles when we don't want, move them on when their value's on the rise. Because once they hit that top value, they're only going to come down. So to move on Xhaka, his second half of the season, he's been quite positive. He's probably improving his value at the moment. To move him on in the summer is sensible business. To trade out Torreira, whose value is on the down, in the steep decline, is going to have to happen, because he could bottom out. You have to move these players on. You have to make the money to be able to reinvest. Leicester sell Maguire for This is a brilliant thing. Leicester sold Maguire for 80 million, reinvested it, did that. They had a reasonable offer from us that they had essentially accepted on Jamie Vardy when we offered for him, but they turned that deal round. Why? Because it wasn't of the right value to them. They couldn't replace him, but they wanted him. So they managed the deal correctly.
And the bigger one, the bigger one than that, Bob, the bigger one than that was we had a deal in principle for Mahrez at 40 million, and then they thought, no, fuck this, we'll give him a new contract. And he went to City for 60, didn't he? I think. Frankie, you're a bit more
something very similar.
Wide football. Yeah. Was it 55, 60 million City paid for him? It wasn't the money that we offered.
55 sounds about right.
Yeah, about that. I think it was around that.
But that's it. These other clubs are relevant. I mean, it's the point we said earlier on. Other clubs are relevant of their money, are managed so much better than Arsenal. If Arsenal managed themselves off the field with a little bit more professionalism, going back to the Dean Wenger era, if they started managing themselves like that, George Graham, George Graham, other than maybe getting a few brown envelopes in his latter time, maybe let's not use George Graham, but in the Dean era, we managed things correctly. We went out and got players that everyone turned their heads at. The whole Nicolas Anelka deal, buy him for cheap, or we're going to get him on a free. Actually, it's getting a bit scary. Let's go and lump in and buy him. Take a punt, sell him a couple of years later for an absolute fortune. Brilliant. Bring in Henry. How good was that? Along with Henry came in Wiltord. How good was he? Along with them came in Robert Pires. How good was he? All these players coming in, buying players effectively. We used to have real head-turning transfers. I remember when we signed Bergkamp. We signed Dennis Bergkamp and David Platt in the same window. What a window.
Yeah. So
that's going back down memory lane, admittedly.
Yeah, but then also doing deals at the right number. Henry had won a World Cup. We paid 13 million for him at the time. Shearer was 15 million. So I know Henry had to find a bit, and Shearer had won a Premier League title, but he was a World Cup winner, as was Wiltord, and we paid 11.5 million for him. Yeah, look.
The scouting of Jens Lehmann. Jens for his eccentricness was a brilliant goalkeeper for Arsenal Football Club. We obviously had an error with Richard Wright, in purchasing him. But scouting Jens Lehmann and picking him up for a nominal amount of money was inspired business. Replace David Seaman, bang, invincible goalkeeper. I think all of those factors, when you look at how we used to be run, was brilliant. We then looked at situations and tried to change things, and we didn't change the model correctly. Gazides, bad management. Since then, bad management. Wenger in Ljungberg, you can't include Ljungberg here, but Emery and Arteta, everything surrounding it is negative. So we do need that big window, but that's a long way away. Even if we have a big window, even if we go and drop 200 million in the summer, I don't have any confidence that they're spending on the right players.
Agreed. I don't have confidence we'd be definitely a shoo-in for the top four either.
No, and I think you're right. I think it needs 2 or 3 £200 million windows with how competitive the rest of the league is. But whilst you're spending your 200 million, Frank, you bought a striker. You're obviously then looking at moving someone on. Where else? What other positions are of interest to you?
We mentioned it earlier. Probably a right back. I think there's quite a few good ones, to be honest. Like the lad from Brighton, Tariq Lamptey, maybe Kyle Walker-Peters. I think one of those players would be good. You could probably sell Bellerin for 15, 20 million, 25 million maybe. So I think that's an easy one. Centre back, I'm actually, you could go and buy a centre back, but I'd rather just see what we had in Saliba. Can we make Saliba Gabriel work as a partnership? It feels like that's where the future should go. Back up left back, as we didn't address it. But then, other than that, I'm pretty happy with our options, to be honest. And it's just we need players to take a leap. We need to go buy some players for the long term. But then we just need Saka to get better. We need Emile Smith-Rowe to get better. We need Partey to settle. We need Pepe to get better. And then I think the squad can come together.
I agree, and I think obviously you've not mentioned centre midfield because you'd like to see Guendouzi play a 45-game season and see what you get out of him.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned it earlier, and I think there's value in it, and I think his ticket price is certainly above what Emery bought him for, and that looks like it was quite good business. But I'd actually potentially look at selling Holding. I think Holding's a good player, but I don't think he's an Arsenal player. And I think Arsenal need to transition the ball a lot quicker. And after he had his long injury holding, he just looks still to be a bit more uncomfortable on the ball. I thought when we played Chelsea in that final and he pocketed Costa, he was also such a competent centre-back because he was such a good distributor. And I think he's really nervous on the ball now. And he doesn't try the same sort of things. You know, Gabriel and Luiz happy to go in over the top and fire off the diverse passing range. He just looks like he's been taken out of his game holding. And I think you need it now. Certainly the way Arteta's going to manage the club, looking at there's a blend of a bit of what Klopp's doing and what he's learned with Guardiola as well, working with him. I would actually really like to see Mari play regularly. I think we look a really solid team defensively when he's in the side.
Absolutely agree with that, wholeheartedly.
Mari's an interesting one. It's just like long term. Where does Gabriel fit in? As they both seem to play left centre back.
Yeah, but you can play with two left-footed centre halves. So many teams have played with two right-footed ones for years. So.
Yeah, I imagine neither of them have played there at all in their career. If you're a left-footed centre half, I can't imagine you've got much experience. But
that's a very valid point.
I think I'd definitely give it a try.
Yeah, for me, I would like to see the central midfield position. I would almost like Partey to pick his partner. You know, I think when we've been good this year, it's all stemmed from Partey controlling the pace of the game, and it reminds me of. There is reminiscing elements of where he looks like a bit of a hybrid of a Vieira and a Petit. He's that classy on the ball like Petit, but he's also that boisterous in sort of when the opposition are in possession, when he's facing them up. He looks like a blend of both of them. And I would just like to say to him, look, who the fuck do you want to play around you? Because you pick and we'll do what we can to give you all the tools. I would like to see Pepe play the lion's share of the next 100 games for Arsenal. And I think he would have a more significant output than any of the other players actually in the front line of the squad. I feel like he's just got so much ability, and he's the closest thing I think we've got to Sanchez, where he just really wants to run at people. And he's the first attacking player I think we've had that truly scares top defenders. You know, I just think of the way he frightened Robertson and Van Dijk the first time he played them. And when he looks like he might be on, I think he could be a game changer for us. I reluctantly would sell Aubameyang in this window. I'm just not sure that he's overcome the debacle around his contract, the extension. Will he or won't he go? And on top of that, obviously, his dear mother getting ill. I just think he needs. I think he needs to change, and I also think because he's such a devoted family man, I think football's less important to him.
There's so much to say about that, James. You're absolute. I agree with you. I've seen. Nothing. I feel for Aubameyang, really. I don't know why, but he's really had a poor season so far. And obviously, the elephant in the Arsenal room at the moment is, I love this little line that I've coined, is how do you solve a problem like Saliba? You know, and it's, you know, what's happened to like yesterday and today with his that pit video that's appeared, the way he's gone out and he's really. Had a go after Arteta. You know, I don't. You know, I find I'm quite cynical. You know, he has a go at Arteta, and 12 hours later, a video of that's appearing. You know, there's certainly a lot to be said about that potentially. But you know, he's not getting game time. We've given him no game time. There's so many problems there. I'm just worried about that being a problem for Arsenal.
Yeah, what do you think, Frank?
Look, I don't want to regret if we sell him and he goes somewhere else and does really well. But I mean, look, the guy's a kid. I think we should probably cut him some slack. Like he's 19. He's lost both his parents this summer, and this video, by all accounts, is meant to be from 3 years ago. So maybe if he's 16, 17 years old, you know, when I was 16 or 17, I did some stupid things.
Yeah.
So look, I'm willing to cut him some slack. But yeah, like, I want to see more. Like he was meant to be the next Van Dijk or the next Varane. So like I'm with you. I want to see it. I want to just get him on the pitch. Just see what. His
form at Nice has been phenomenal, quite frankly. So with that in mind, you're seeing the on-pitch stuff. I mean, let's not forget one of our greatest ever centre-backs. Okay, our greatest ever centre-back, Tony Adams, did time in prison for drink driving. He was an alcoholic. He had so many issues himself, gambling and drugs. Paul Merson, another Arsenal player that's had issues. Lots of players in Arsenal Football Club have had issues. Put the fire extinguisher down, Ray, all of that sort of joking stuff. But with that much included, I think you have to say Saliba's faux pas looks wrong, smells wrong. In a social media world where things are tweeted in a second and 10 million people see them in that very second, we have an issue. Back 20 years ago, you wouldn't have had such an issue. He does deserve a chance. You don't drop 30 million on a teenager if they really ain't worth it.
No, and it was such a fight with Spurs as well, our greatest rivals, who in the last 10 years have been graced with really good centre-backs, really, and they were prepared to drop the coin on him, So, look, I'm in agreement with you. I actually quite like his comments against Arteta to say, look, it's tough for me. I had to train on my own. Haven't been given the minutes I wanted. But now I've got my chance to prove it. And then he's gone and got Player of the Month at Nice in his first month, and hopefully he continues to put more and more performances in. If there's ever a time for him to come in and get a chance at Arsenal, it will be this year. You've lost Socrates, you've lost Mustafi. Chambers has got a year left on his deal. He doesn't seem to get a look in, albeit Arteta says he likes him. And Luiz is out of contract in the summer. So you could see four centre-backs leave Arsenal in a space of six months. So, if ever there's a chance for him to come and upset the apple cart, and like Frankie just made the point on, the right-footed centre-half tends to be someone that's normally always right-footed, because a left-footed player would just feel like natural playing on the right side. So he's only got Luiz and Holding to dismount. Luiz is out of contract, and I think personally Holding can be got at. So, yeah, it's an interesting one for him. Look, we move on. The transfer window did also finally bring us to the climax of Mesut Ozil's career at Arsenal. And Frankie, we just wanted to find out what your opinion on Ozil. Were you an Ozil in? Were you an Ozil out? How did you actually take us back to the summer when you found out that Ozil had been deregistered from the two major competitions Arsenal were in, and just whether or not you thought that was the right thing to do or not?
I think from the moment we decided that we didn't want to play with him and we didn't think he could contribute, we should have done what we did in January in the summer. If there wasn't someone that no one was going to buy him, then I think we should have just done what we did earlier. Do I think he could contribute? Yes. The problem is I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Like, if Arteta really doesn't believe, let's be honest, there's probably been 3 managers now that have not fancied Ozil towards the end of his career. 4 if you include the German team. At the end of Wenger's reign, he didn't love Ozil every week, especially in away games at big clubs. Emery certainly didn't get on with Ozil great, and Arteta hasn't now. You start to think, who is the problem? And I'm willing to back the manager over a single player. So I do think that the club should have just acted earlier and got this out of the way, because I know in my head the Ozil thing of not being in the team every week towards the end of last season. By the end of last season, it wasn't really a thing for me. I just never expected him to play. So I just wish the club dealt with it quicker. Yeah,
that's a fair point. And I think one of them things though that is that if he is registered, you just say he's not being. It's easier though. There's no kind of like light being shone on the Arsenal hierarchy because he's been deregistered. It's like every time we lose, it's like, well, if Ozil played, if he's registered and he's not getting picked, it's like, well, he's just not doing what we need him to do in training. I think the point was that it was so short at the start of the season. We didn't have Smith Rowe. He was injured, and we're playing kind of Willock or Willian there, and Willian has flopped at Arsenal with all due respect. So yeah, it's not gone in Arsenal's favour. If Willian had come in and just bossed it, Willock carried on his form of last season, and then we had the emergence of Smith Rowe and Saka. They'd have been like, the club are ruthless. They got rid of Ozil when they needed to, and it was a really good decision. But I mean, I just think it's taken the gloss off of some of his Arsenal career, and I actually think he was integral to Arsenal kind of stopping that period where they were becoming a bit of a mockery, where we were just selling players, not buying high ticket players. And he and Sanchez were kind of like a bit of a watered down version of that kind of Henri Bergkamp era where they lifted the club. He was probably very unlucky not to win a league title in 15-16, just a complete loss of form by Giroud. You know, if you look at his statistics that year in 15-16, you know, he's contributed to so many goals, Bob, wasn't it? Like 45 goals or something.
Unbelievable numbers. You know, the way he got himself to the number of assists early way through, and then that just dropped off. You know, the bloke's contributions for Arsenal were phenomenal, but they dropped off significantly.
Yeah, they did. And I just try and remember the good. You know, he's won 3 or 4 FA Cups and a handful of Community Shields, which, you know, Mourinho said that's a major honour now, so we'll take it.
You should have, like, people just need to, I think you're completely right. Like, remember the good, approach the situation with nuance. Like, he was good at Arsenal from 2014 to 2017. After 2017 to 2018, things weren't as good. And, you know, I think football changed as well. Like, from 2010 to 2014 or 2010 to 2016, teams, you could get away with players that, you know, perhaps didn't track back as much. Whereas now football is just so much about pace, power, direct counter-attacking. Is Mesut Ozil the best player for that constant game? I don't know. Would Ozil do that well in this team? I don't think he would. Like, and that's not because he's not a good player. I just don't think his style of player really exists that much anymore. Like De Bruyne, as much as, you know, plays in the attacking midfield, doesn't play in the number 10 position anymore. Like, how many players actually play in the number 10 position?
Yeah, it's like an advanced 8 now, isn't it? You know, De Bruyne. But exactly. I don't think it was ever. I mean, from going to deep into the hundreds of games that Ozil played at Arsenal, you know, it was never a case of kilometres travelled where people used to say he was lazy. He was just my biggest issue with him being a complete footballer was his utter reluctance for contact. You know, it's like there was not even.
Yep.
He could have, bizarrely, today's day and age football where you press, like, was actually how he used to defend. But he would press without contact. You know, it would be so he could press space, but if you press high and you press intelligently, you create a problem, then all of a sudden everything goes 100 miles an hour because you either get the opportunity to steal the ball and you've got to go bang, 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 you know, or the ball goes out of play and you've just got to think fast and something happens. And I think you're absolutely right. His style of football was to completely determine the pace of play in the final third by getting into pockets and stuff like that. And the way teams defend now in such disciplined banks of 4, it's very difficult for a player like that to go and find a pocket of space where they can do all those things. But on the flip side of that, when the game's got half an hour to close out and fatigue kicks in and both teams are going to try and win games, when there's disparity in a team's shape, then that's kind of when you're looking at it and you think, well, Ozil might do something in this situation. Do you know what I mean? Because he's got that pass that he had the ability to see a pass, much like a Bergkamp, that I think when you've got a full Emirates, 60,000 people don't know what's going on. Only one person does. You just hope that there's some telepathy with the person that you intend to receive the ball, that they actually know what you're trying to do. But that was the genius of Ozil. You know, I wish him well at Fenerbahce. I think the club treated him poorly. I think we've treated a couple of players poorly recently. And I don't know whether I think this Ødegaard thing will work out. I always want Arsenal to win football games, so I hope anyone in the matchday squad has the game of their life to attribute to us taking 3 points from it. But 9 interviews, Twitter press, Instagram press, loads of tweets, loads of Instagrams for a signing that's actually only going to be at the club 150 days, and simply a thank you Mesut tweet in Instagram from a guy who had 7.5 years.
I think Mustafi got a better farewell than Ozil, if I remember rightly. You know, he had full Edu coming out, congratulating him, thank him, all of that. Socrates got a massive farewell. A lot of bon voyages for those players. But yeah, Ozil, nothing. I don't even think Willock and Maitland-Niles got as good luck messages as that fuck Mustafi, who, riles me every time I see him on a football pitch for whomever he plays for.
Yeah,
there's only one player that's ever done that much.
Arguably,
and that was Kevin Turban.
Arguably, we gave Cech a salute, for his career, but his career was all of his achievements were at Chelsea. Really, I know he's the current Golden Glove holder or all-time clean sheet holder of the Premier League, but I think he's only got 25 or 30 at Arsenal, and like 120 at Chelsea. To be given that kind of final game send-off and salute and standing ovation sort of thing, it just feels like there's a bit of a disparity there, But obviously you can't do those sorts of things. But that would never have happened with Mesut anyway. They were never going to give him kind of like a guard of honour for his career at Arsenal, and probably bar Van Persie and Fabregas, he might just be the most decorated player of the Emirates era.
For sure.
Anyway, right. Valentine's Day massacre or romance again at the Emirates. Leeds on Valentine's Day, Frank. I won't keep you much longer because your girlfriend's probably throwing daggers at me. Now we've run over a little bit. But
it's funny actually. She's a Leeds fan, so.
Oh, really? This is amazing. Yeah. This is the most amazing thing. What a week to have you on. You're Mrs. What? God, I wish I knew this earlier. I'd have had a full-on repertoire ready for this. So Valentine's Day, you're going to be having a candlelit supper just as Arsenal unfold versus Leeds. It depends what Arsenal turn up. If it's the proper Arsenal that we've had since Christmas, then it could be a great game. Leeds looked great last night, got some good players.
They did.
They're great attacking Leeds. A lot of people give them that credit. But I reckon we can smash them. But I also reckon if Uncle Fluffy Arsenal turns up, we could get absolutely brutalised. We've got Leno back. By all accounts, we're going to have every single centre-back to choose from. Partey's apparently fit. Rumours of KT being okay. That's more of a fatigue injury. So we're getting to that stage where everyone's available. So we turn up, we play. Think, good luck, Leeds. We'll thump you. However, which is not good for you, Frankie.
Well, I think it'll be a good game. As you said, Leeds are a really good side. Like they're the way it's been done to death, but the way they've come up and actually been a breath of fresh air to the Premier League. They're one of the few teams I actually find really enjoyable to watch. Thankfully, I get to watch them a lot more than other teams. But they're completely They've completely ripped up the rules on how you play in the Premier League once you get promoted. And I've really enjoyed watching them. Marcelo Bielsa, he's got the most out of some really fucking average players. Like Luke Ayling is not a Premier League footballer, plays like a Premier League footballer. I think they're a really good side. I think
he was obviously an Arsenal youth player.
He was an Arsenal.
Almost an Arsenal reject, really. I mean, never getting his first team chance. But I'm going to let you finish that sentence because I assume you're going to talk about another player as well who was a Premier League reject.
I can't think of who you're thinking of, but Patrick Bamford probably. Yeah. He's turned it around and I know he missed that really hilarious chance against Palace, but he looks brilliant. Like they signed Rodrigo for 30 million and he's actually done okay, but like Bamford just looks like he plays exactly how Marcelo Bielsa wants him to play. And that's why he plays every week. Like people laugh at him a lot of the time when he was in the Championship. And, Leeds fans, from what I've heard, always gave Patrick Bamford a lot of stick. But like this season, he shut everyone up. Like there's no getting away from that. Like he's been brilliant. And I think Arsenal Leeds is going to be a fantastic game because the two teams and kind of what I was saying earlier against the Villa game, I think we're two quite similar level teams, and I think it's going to be a close game. But it could be 1-0, it could be 2-0, it could be 5-4. Like it's a completely unpredictable game for me.
It's a massive game. So Leeds are currently sitting in 10th place of 22 games. Played 22, won 10, drawn 2, lost 10. Goal difference of dead on 0, 32 points. Arsenal just behind them in 11. Played 1 game more, won 9, drawn 4, lost 10. Goal difference of +4. Arsenal need to win that game just to go above Leeds, the 10th. That's the highest Arsenal could achieve.
Yeah, I need that.
But you've got Southampton, Palace just behind Arsenal. If they both win, you could see Arsenal being 13th place
For sure.
13th place on February the 14th. Bad.
Bamford. I saw on that point on Bamford. I saw an interesting point Darren Bent made, and he said some players, from experience, because he played in it, some players' games just don't operate in the Championship. Because it's underneath the Premier League, people just assume it's the Premier League, watered down. But it's two completely different styles of football. The intensity in the Championship is something different. And he said some people's games just don't completely flourish in the Championship, but that doesn't mean they're not Premier League footballers. And he scored 12 goals in his first Premier League season for Leeds, 12 in 22. It's better than a 1 in 2 return. That's pretty good going. That surpasses any Arsenal goal scorer this season. I think Lacazette's maybe got 10 or 11. So he's outscored all of our players. I agree with you. I had to watch it closely as well, Frank. My wife's sister's husband-to-be, my brother-in-law, is a massive Leeds fan, and he will be cooking my WhatsApp all day on Valentine's Day, like literally giving it to me gun-ho. Because he already did, thinking that they probably outplayed us. We grew on all with them, didn't we, earlier on in the season? But was it 0-0?
0-0.
But they outplayed us and probably deserve more deserving of a win in that game. Yeah, I'm like you, Frank, to be honest. I'm sitting on my hands a little bit, and I'm just going to be a little bit kind of skew-if in the corner and just hope we kind of meander through it with any too much upset.
The reverse fixture was obviously the infamous Pepe headbutt game.
Yes, with Alioski. Yes.
So, I just want, Arsenal, if Arsenal get beat and they turn up, you just go home and you say we got beat by the better team. It's when they don't turn up and they lose that you just walk away thinking that you've missed out on something. You're hard done by, you're lacking in something. Arsenal turn up and play well and get beat, or play half decent and get beat, fair play. But most of the games in the last few weeks, Southampton went down with a whimper in the cup game, a whimper. The second half, the way that sending off, followed by the Arteta substitution, popped us like a balloon. I went down with a whimper yet again. Vida this weekend started off like we were still in bed, and it's just that's what I don't want to see. If we go out and get smashed or we play a proper game of football, like how we played against Liverpool and got beat 3-1. Liverpool battered us earlier on in the season, but I thought we played half decent against them. You could disagree with me, but we played half decent and we got beat. Fair enough. That's acceptable. But some of the losses recently, we had a similar run of form just after the United game. We started off playing some nice football. We were contending for top 4. We get to the stage, we play Villa, we play Wolves, we play Burnley, we play Leeds. Next thing you know, you're staring at an Arsenal relegation dogfight. I think we're in that same run of games again. If Arteta can't, if we don't win at the weekend, we're not in a relegation dogfight, don't get me wrong, because we played some good football. We'll play that football again this season. But we must win this weekend, just for morale, just to believe in Arsenal Football Club a little bit, because a failure to win, and I include a draw in that, I think such a bad result for us at home.
Well, let's move on to the last part of the show then, and let's do predictions. I am going to go 1-1, and I said to you last week, Bob, I'll keep saying Lacazette will score until he does. So 1-1, Lacazette as the scorer. Bob?
Oh, I'm going to go 2-1 to Arsenal. I'm going for this. 2-1 to Arsenal. And he's going to atone for what happened last time round. And Nicola Pepe will score.
And Frank?
You know what? I'll
Frank, before you say, make sure the door's shut. Make sure the door's shut.
I'm going to go for a happy household, and I'm going to say 2-2.
Desmond.
Yeah, I think everyone would be happy. Certainly, my household would be happy.
Nice. Who will score, Frank? You got a goal scorer?
I think you're right on the money with the Pepe shout. I think he's going to come back and score. I'd like to see Aubameyang score. To be honest, I think he needs it. He looked like he actually did, kind of get a few goals, and he obviously had the unfortunate situation with his mother. So yeah, I hope he finds the net again.
Nice, like it. All right, well, we've covered a load off. Frank, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you will come and join us again in the near future. It's been really good to have you. Yeah, lovely. And Bob, as always, I have enjoyed you. So look, all the best. Have a lovely week. Roses and flowers everywhere. Arsenal on Valentine's Day. I've been Jim.
I've been Bob.
All the best, guys. Thank you.